Welcome to Logistics Business Conversations, where we talk with key spokespeople in the logistics industry about topical issues. Hosted by Peter MacLeod, editor of Logistics Business magazine.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to the latest Logistics Business Conversations podcast, which is brought to you today by SnapFulfill. My name is Peter MacLeod, and it's my great pleasure to host this podcast. This episode is called Why 3PLs and Retailers Are Ditching Legacy WMS, and we'll be going over the many operational benefits and other gains that can be achieved by switching to a modern cloud-based WMS solution. I'm delighted to be joined again by Smitha Rafael, Chief Product and Delivery Officer at cloud warehouse management system provider SnapFulfill, whom we met last year when we discussed things about maintaining a positive customer experience and how that was an important factor in customer retention. Hello, Smitha, and welcome back to Logistics Business Conversations.
Thank you, Peter. Excited to be back again.
Well, great to have you back here, as I said. Now, this edition, as I said before, is called Why 3PLs and Retailers Are Ditching Legacy WMS. So, to get us underway, Smitha, maybe you can tell us what do we mean by legacy WMS and why are 3PLs and retailers ditching it?
Absolutely. Yeah. When we talk about legacy systems or legacy WMSs, we're really talking about the inability of systems to kind of scale or grow quickly or adapt quickly. As we all know, supply chain, especially the warehousing space, ever since COVID, changes rapidly. And you have all these big systems that are so customized, etc., that aren't able to change quickly. Customers just don't have the time to wait, as they change their business models, as they grow, etc. And so that's where we talk about scalability, integrations, and newer systems really being able to have all this inbuilt functionality out of the box for customers, which legacy systems at this point really don't.
Now, in our pre-podcast chat, you told me about a site you're at relatively recently which you were onboarding. Tell us about the challenges that you came across there.
Yeah, and I think the main theme really is integration, right, between systems. This particular site or customer, they've grown with us, added multiple sites, etc. They were looking at making a big change in their ERP system, bringing on additional brands, customers, etc., all over a weekend. If they were to make this change with a legacy WMS, they would have probably required a whole bunch of customization, software changes, etc. However, with the modern WMS, kind of like us, all they required was rules, changes to rules, addition of rules, all the integration, etc., just worked with configuration. And so that kind of saved them both time, effort, labor in terms of not having to customize a solution, but just use the functionality already existing in the WMS to be able to make that transition in the business model.
So wearing my hat as an editor of a warehouse automation magazine, predominantly, when I think of integration and interface, I think of robotics and automation. But I guess from your perspective, integration goes way beyond that into some of the back-end systems as well.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, you have integrations, connections to various systems, be it from a WMS to an ERP or an OMS, order management system, transportation management systems, even integrations to cartonization API products and things like that. And so apart from system to system, when we think about integrations there, you do have integrations, obviously, to automation, which is a big piece. I think almost every customer we speak to these days, pre-sales and after are thinking about automation. And so that's pretty key, that you have that ready and to go within your WMS and you're not going out to third parties. But yeah, integration these days is a big thing just because there are so many different systems that customers want to implement and want to kind of have talk to each other to gain efficiencies.
So obviously integration, the interface is one of the big challenges. What are the other challenges you come across when you're implementing a WMS system?
I think the biggest one really is change management from a non-technical perspective. When we have customers move from, let's say, a paper-based system where they're so used to looking at a paper to see what to pick or what to pack and things like that, now having to just have a system tell them exactly how they need to go about picking or replenishing or putting away product. So that's a big change, and mainly for warehouse workers, just kind of being able to kind of give up that control. The other challenge I would say is, and since we talked about automation, right, is everybody wants to bring in automation. You go to any of these trade shows, the big ones, and you see all these beautiful systems, etc. And that's perfect. That's great, right? But I think the big piece of this is selecting the right automation. One size does not fit all. So identifying the areas that, need help within your warehouse or business processes and bringing in the right automation there, because that really could be disastrous when you're trying to like force a piece of automation to work with other systems, not just a WMS, but like, an ERP or maybe a packing algorithm, etc.
So who are we talking about when we say the customers or the users? Who are we aiming to reach with this new era WMS system?
Yeah, I think it's all across the board, really, all the way from 3PLs, because no longer do you have 3PLs with a standard set of rates and rules, etc. You're just bringing on customers. These days, a 3PL brings in different types of customers. Each customer has different requirements. To be able to bring in your customers onto a platform that you can just set up rules through, like a rules engine, or create labels and custom packing lists yourself without depending on a whole IT team is pretty big, because that gives you control to bring on a customer very quickly and not take, a month to do so. So 3PLs, multi-sites. So, got customers across the board who will implement one or two sites with, our project team. But then after that, they look at rolling out multiple sites within their teams with just plain configuration. Again, no software changes across and in parallel. So that's important. So scalability, when we talk about scalability, being able to push sites across, globally using a WMS. And then I think the third one really would be customers who are looking to change possibly business models in the long term. So they may start off as B2C, but, who knows, in a couple of months, they may think the 3PL business model is attractive. And we have customers who've done that very successfully. And so that's what's important: flexibility and scalability for these three types of customers.
So the kind of circumstances that might drive a customer to your door would be if they change their business substantially, and that could mean change the way they do their business or the type of products that they're dealing with, that they're handling, or it could just be that they have ambitions for growth. Is that areas where you can help and support them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think growth is a big one, right? Not just in terms of volume, because you need to be able to flex and perform as a customer grows in volume, but also in terms of, I want to implement a picking piece of automation or a packing piece of automation. Can you get this up running within a month and not be like a big 6-month project, etc.? So that's important as well. So bringing growth in terms of business, in terms of sites, and in terms of technology. One really important piece of all of this is the fact that we take away from the customer. A modern WMS takes away the dependency of worrying about cybersecurity, disaster recovery, scalability, failovers, etc. All the hardware pieces of hosting a platform with a SaaS cloud-based WMS, that's possible. Whereas if they had to kind of manage something on their own, you'd probably need a full infrastructure department.
So what does an implementation look like? I guess you're removing infrastructure rather than adding. So in a way, it's probably removing complexity from the customer's operations.
Yeah, I think what we focus on during an implementation of a WMS really is the requirements. What are your pain points? What do you want, to kind of achieve? I'm really grateful we've got a team of, very experienced project managers who've been there and done that, right, in warehouses. And so they have their perspective. But essentially, it's mainly, the requirements within the warehouse for the business, end-to-end product, all the way from the time the product comes in till the time it goes out within the warehouse. How do we optimize your picking based on the footprint of your warehouse or your layout or the type of product, etc. And so it's all of that we look at and configure the system. And then from there, obviously, you train users, have them test the system thoroughly with real life data so that go live is a success. And then the other piece, again, as we started the conversation about integration, making sure that the WMS talks to all the external systems it needs to, whether it's carriers to get shipping labels or the ERP to get orders or, a TMS to route loads correctly, and efficiently. And so all of those pieces. The infrastructure, luckily, because it's all inbuilt into the solution, is something we don't have to spend a lot of time on, and neither does the client have to either, right? So it's mainly, how many RF devices or printers or packing stations do we require? And that's probably the basics of that.
So we're talking about a cloud-based solution here, and quite often when such things are discussed, there are concerns raised around cybersecurity. So what sort of firewalls or what sort of insurances can you give to your customers when they express such concerns?
Yeah. So we use state-of-the-art, world-renowned hosting centers, data hosting providers, etc. We also use providers for security across the board, whether it's, the database or servers or disaster recovery, failovers. There are tests and actual real-life scenarios done throughout the year to ensure all of this works perfectly if a scenario were to happen. But some of the providers we've partnered with are providers who actually manage the likes of Microsoft or even, Department of Defense, etc. And these hosting centers are located across the world. And hence, things like performance. They've got the tools to actually monitor and see when maybe you need more resources. And that automatically happens as opposed to waiting on a customer to come back. So it's more proactive than reactive.
Earlier on, when we were talking about this generation of WMS systems, you mentioned customers have the ability to create their own rules. What do you exactly mean by that? Could you just explain a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we think about, a simple scenario picking, right, you could pick in a variety of ways. Let's say a customer has decided to do big promotion and it's all the same product. And there are 10,000 orders of these. You don't want to be picking 10,000 orders, even if it was in batches of, 10 or things like that, which is your normal picking setup, let's say. This is one where it's all the same product, etc. And so they can go into the system and set up a rule to say, well, this is the type of product or category of product or category of order profile. And I'd like to just spit out 10,000 shipping labels at a time, when these orders come in, as opposed to having the system direct the work through, RF picking and packing, etc., one by one. And they can just do this in simple logical statements. So you do not need to be a programmer or anything. You could go and say, well, this is the way I want to pick, or something like put away or replenishment, right? A new type of product is coming in. You want to put it away to a certain section of the warehouse. All they need to do is go in and say, well, if this is the product grouping, put it away to this new section I've created in the warehouse. And so they can do, kind of all of that, or just connections. If an order reaches a particular stage of pack, send an email notification, and things like that. And those are the sort of rules that you can just create, as opposed to if you didn't have that, then you'd be saying, oh, Mr. WMS, could you please build in the software modification to send an email notification, or can you create this new type of picking workflow for this type? So that's extremely powerful, the rules engine.
I can see that being attractive to a customer, but what are the other features, would you say, Smitha, that your customers would be interested in?
Yeah, so self-service is a very big piece in the past couple of years that we concentrated on. We brought out the Reveal dashboard. Previously, the dashboard came with, a standard set of dashboard panels, shipments, exceptions, receipts, etc., performance. And now what we've done is we've brought out a dashboard where customers now, apart from getting the standard set, can go in and build their own dashboard. So if they've got certain specific order classifications or certain types of performance they want to track, or even performance of their work going to the automation from the WMS and response times, they can go in and build those themselves. Again, it's more of just a drag and drop of what they'd like to see in a graph. And so that makes it very attractive. The other piece is, again, designers, whether it's reports or documents like packing lists, retail compliance labels, etc. We provide all the templates and, a whole slew of these UCC labels, but then customers can go in and just very quickly build some of that as well. And I think the last one over here is Snap Control, which is part of the whole SnapFulfill meets automation profile, where we look at being able to bring up connections to, various automation devices very quickly. So if we say your WMS is going to be implemented in 45 to 60 days, then your integration or connection to the automation that you've chosen should also be up and running within that time, and Snap Control allows for that.
Smitha, when I speak to people from the industry at conferences or exhibitions as a sort of a roving editor, I ask them what their greatest challenges are, what their business needs are. The top 6 doesn't really change much, whether I'm talking about warehouse automation, WMS, whether I'm talking about transportation. Number 1 is always bottom line, and that's never changed. So I just wonder, what can you say to a businessman who says it's all very well, all of these bells and whistles, but what's it going to do to my bottom line?
So at the end of the day, right, the main thing is being able to get out those orders in a timely fashion, being able to meet the SLAs that you've set for your customer, well, your customers have kind of set for you. And so a couple of things here. One is efficiencies in warehouse processes definitely impact your bottom line. If you can pick more orders in a shorter time with fewer people, that has a direct impact. And only a WMS system that can build picking workflows or has picking optimization already built into it. And same thing, it's all interleaved. your replenishment, your put away, all of that, being able to have all that logic, all those algorithms within a WMS allows for that. And then again, the other piece that impacts your bottom line really is scalability. You are not going to be able to recognize any return on investment if it takes you forever to bring on, for a 3PL to bring on more customers. So it's important that they're able to bring on more customers very quickly, as opposed to in a year, I just have 4 customers that I've been able to bring on. And really with manual, non-scalable systems, that is not possible. But with a system that just is very flexible in terms of rules and what you can build within it without depending on anyone else, it kind of helps with that.
One of the other challenges they talk about is sort of retention, attraction of labor. And I guess what you've been saying is, an efficient and well-organized and well-operated warehouse will necessarily require lower headcount. Is that fair?
Would require lower headcount in certain manual processes, right? So let's say, as an example, if you had, 50 pickers, you need fewer pickers now because the system's kind of grouping the work efficiently for you. But think about it the other way too. To attract labor in a warehouse these days, nobody really wants to do the same manual, tasks. Not very rewarding. And these days, when you walk into a warehouse and you speak to some of these really bright young people working in a warehouse, they're ready to use some new shiny technology and kind of scale up in their own careers as well. And so you can actually look at those same people, using those people in other areas that would probably bring more benefit. Things like, now I have a system that's making all the lower end decisions. I can now work on, decisions higher up as to, well, how many orders do I need to get out today to meet, this bottom line, or how do I need to spread work? Are my suppliers going to meet their deadlines? How do I hold my suppliers accountable so I can get my orders out? So those are the sort of things we'd like, the labor force to focus on.
Another thing would be sustainability. When the procurement department puts out the tender, and there's a big blank page there saying, what is your business going to do to help our reduction in waste, reduction in carbon use? What can you say to our listeners who have sustainability high on their list of business priorities?
It's funny. The first thing that comes to mind is like, take those packing lists and burn them. So I think mainly moving towards a paperless environment. The word system itself, right? You brought in system, you brought in new technology. There shouldn't be a reason for you to have paper pick lists anymore. We've done away with that, obviously. Also, don't really require paper packing lists anymore. It's so much more fulfilling when a customer kind of gets your real-time messages from a system saying, well, your order is being picked by so-and-so. Your order is currently being packed. Your order has left the building, right? And also get an email with the packing list contacts, etc., as opposed to, well, I got my box and now there's like all this paper within it. So cutting out on all that paper waste. Another one I would say is cartonization, whether it's within the WMS or whether, you've integrated to a custom packing machine like we see these days that, custom builds your box according to what's required. So you're shipping out less air. Your carrier costs are going down as well. So it's a double win over there. Packaging material, you're saving on that. So yeah, I think the main areas I would say is decreasing paper, packaging, and all of that. And then I think the last piece as well, as you're getting out more orders out, using less space or the optimum space in a warehouse, so fewer pallets. And all of that is possible because of your put away rules or replenishment, however a system sets up things for you.
Less resource per order across the board. I think you've kind of answered the next question I was going to ask you, which was around visibility. Well, you've answered it in many ways that from maybe a consumer's perspective, because they will see they'll have much greater visibility of their individual order. But what about from the warehouse operator's perspective? And where can your solution enhance visibility there?
We were at a warehouse recently, and the warehouse director said, well, I just want to come into the warehouse and have a Bible in front of me, right? That tells me in one shot what's going on in the warehouse. Where are my, critical issues, exceptions? What do I need to do to get them resolved? And can they just automatically get resolved with me just saying yes, right? And so one of those things comes down to data, the data that you have. And with a WMS, that all of that's possible because we have visibility right from the time a truck enters your yard with whatever POs, etc. We know what orders and what dates they need to ship out on, and when that product's coming in to automatically work, that product movement through the warehouse. It doesn't need to be put away. It needs to go straight to the dock to be shipped out, and things like that. And all of that's possible because of the data that the system has, and the rules and the movement of product right from dock in to dock out is all possible as well because of that data. And what's even better is that a warehouse manager doesn't have to go around chasing people. Oh, can you do this? Can you do that? We need this done. They can sit in front of their WMS screen and say, it looks like we have, a larger number of this order profile coming in. I probably need, instead of 5 people, 7 people on this. And all they have to do is just give someone permission from the screen. No communication, nothing. Automatically, your warehouse operators are given those tasks because they've been given permissions to it. And so, just all of that visibility kind of allows for those important decisions to be made by warehouse managers and also automatically flow down to the operators where they don't really have to make any decisions. The work just automatically goes to them because of the data that was in.
Well, it's 2025 at the time of recording. If you're listening to this podcast in the future, hello. And I wonder what it's like out there, because currently we think AI is more than a buzzword. It's actually going to become something that controls quite a lot of our aspects of our lives. Now, if I can bring this back round to WMS, is WMS an area where AI is getting deployed, or is it just a load of marketing bunkum?
So it's definitely making an entry for sure. I think last year when we were at trade shows, people were talking about AI and supply chain. This year, back in Feb, you actually saw products coming out in the supply chain area, but specifically in international logistics, freight forwarders, etc. All of that. And now, the second half of this year, you definitely see AI making its way into the warehouse or WMS space. I would definitely advise that one needs to be very clear around things like algorithms that should already be in your WMS. Like I heard someone read the other day talking about picking optimization, etc. And I said, well, if your WMS already doesn't have picking optimization, that's a problem because people are implementing a WMS to get the efficiencies, etc. So why are you now requiring AI in areas that your WMS should already have catered for? So I think there are very specific areas of focus. I would say, again, going up to the top, things like we talked about setting up rules or a rules engine or making decisions looking at a dashboard. These dashboards are great. I love the fact that I can build them. But now I want to be able to just say, hey, give me XYZ. And essentially my dashboard now has the AI capability to build you your dashboards that you required instead of someone. The next step on that is AI going into I would, again, be very careful. Automatic rules creation, right? So now based on the data and the trends and so on, can we have the rule automatically generate? But I'll be very careful over here to say you don't want to automatically release rules into the wild. It can just cause tremendous harm. But there's no harm, definitely, for some of the AI tools we're looking at to make suggestions saying, hey, I've noticed this and this. Would you like me to now create a rule that changes the workflow of this type of order, right? And then the final decision comes down to a warehouse manager. Because again, there's always the external factors that also impact what's going on within a warehouse.
I think there's a wider conversation for another podcast about the use of AI and human intervention or not. For now, Smitha, I will say that sadly the clock is ticking on remorselessly, and we're reaching the end of our allotted time. So maybe you could just summarize in a few words what the next steps are that businesses can take if they want to jump aboard the WMS Express. Where do they start?
I think selection process right from the get-go is important. You need to pick a WMS that is able to scale with you, that you do have control of in terms of changing workflows and setting up your rules, etc. But more importantly, thinking about the future, you need a WMS that you see growing with you in terms of being able to implement new automation, new technology, so that you're not stuck, 1 year or even like 2 years down the line saying, oh, well, my WMS now doesn't have the capability to connect to all these wonderful, picking and packing automation, trucks, etc., and all of that. So there's that. And then the second piece over here is change management, as I'd mentioned. Get your team ready to embrace the idea of new technology. It's not something to be scared of. If anything, it's just going to enhance your work-life balance. So you're not having to sit in the warehouse sifting to paperwork and orders. It's a turn for the positive. So change management is important over there. And then the last one is when we talk about systems, sometimes it just sounds not very personal, but pick a WMS provider that stresses on partnership as well. Because when things are going wrong, it is your WMS provider, that can come in, make recommendations, come over to your warehouse or your sites and, help with future projects that you may have as well.
Well, Smitha, thank you for your tremendous insight today. It's been a great pleasure to welcome you back to Logistics Business Conversations. I love talking to you about how businesses can optimize their warehouses. Thanks to you, the listener, for joining us today. Wherever you get your podcasts from, please subscribe to Logistics Business Conversations to make sure the next edition is delivered straight to you as soon as it's released. Until then, it's goodbye from Smitha Rafael.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Goodbye, everyone.
And it's goodbye from me, Peter MacLeod. Goodbye.